Did you know 80% of clinical trials fail to recruit patients on time? That's billions wasted, timelines shattered, and patients left waiting. You've seen clinical trials inside out. Why do these things take forever?
We are a slow to adopt industry. As you know, it takes us a while to get to the point where we adopt new technology, new thoughts on how to do things.
AI is as good as the data it gets. So, what points are very well supported by the data in the ecosystem and what points not so much?
I mean, I think everything that, like you're saying, everything that has data involved can be fair game for using AI. I think what we can't lose track of during this entire discussion is the human element. And I think the intent here is to not take the human element out.
Insomnia at the moment because I sleep one day and next morning I get up and there is completely new tech stack that is available now. Did you know 80% of clinical trials fail to recruit patients on time? That's billions wasted, timelines shattered, and patients left waiting. But what if AI could turn trials from slow motion into fast forward? And that's exactly what we are digging into today. Welcome to the very first episode of the best AI show on Pharma. I am Ayush Mishra, and yes, the show title is intentionally cocky because anything less would be injustice to what we are building here. To kick us off, I'm joined by Dr. Scott Treiber. Scott is the Chief Operations Officer at Cedar Health Research with over 30 years across CROs, pharma, and site networks. So basically, if pharma were the Avengers, Scott would be Nick Fury. Scott, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ayush. Great to be here.
So, are you excited or nervous? And don't worry, as I said, this is the safest trial you've ever been part of.
All of the above, Ayush. Yes, I'm excited. There's a lot to talk about, and I think we're only going to touch a little piece of everything that's going on, at least in clinical research right now.
Awesome, perfect. So, let's start at the top. You've seen clinical trials inside out, right? So, if you were at a dinner party and someone asked you, why do these things take forever? What's your no jargon 30-second answer to that? No PhD answer.
Well, I think one of the things that this industry, like you said, I've been doing this for 30 some years now, and we are a slow to adopt industry, as you know. So I think part of it is that it takes us a while to get to the point where we adopt new technology, new thoughts on how to do things. And I'll give you an example. Like during the pandemic, we were kind of fast forwarding, getting into decentralized trials, doing things in a hybrid fashion, and I feel like we've slipped back again a little bit. So that's just kind of the way this industry is. And if you just look at all the things that need to take place in order to get a drug approved, it there are a lot of moving parts. So when I talk to people about why it takes so long, you really have to explain all the different components and what it takes to get from the concept of a drug to the actual approval process. And this is where AI is already starting to show benefits, becoming more precise, more efficient, and being able to speed things up.
So, more importantly, as you said, where do you think AI can actually fix it? What piece of this puzzle can AI actually fix?
I think it could touch just about every component, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I know we're not going to talk in a lot of detail about things like supply chain management, protocol design, and even going back, we start at the very beginning. I worked with some companies years ago that were starting to use AI. This is probably 6, 7 years ago to actually determine what drugs might be worth pulling through. Looking at older drugs, older compounds that were just kind of shuttled to see if they
Yeah.
might work and bring it forward. So that that's all ongoing, and I don't think we've even seen the fruits of all of that labor yet. But as we start to kind of narrow that funnel and figure out what things are going to work, once they get into the development cycle, there are like every touch point, I think, has the possibility and the potential of being touched by AI.
So you said there at every point there's a possibility of an AI touch point. What points works best from a data standpoint? So I mean, your AI is as good as the data it gets. So what points are very well supported by the data in the ecosystem, and what points not so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that, like you're saying, everything that has data involved can be fair game for using AI. I think what we can't lose track of during this entire discussion is the human element, right? And I think the the intent here is to not take the human element out. It's to allow the human element to be doing what it does best, right? Creating, innovating, iterating. So I'll give you an example. I mean, I think the first thing on my list, and it'll be the last thing when we talk later about my 10x thought, is natural language processing.
Mm.
We have we have tons of data that we're sitting on, whether it's in an EMR, whether it's a series of drug approvals and all the data that go into those drug approvals. There's data everywhere, but it's too much for one person to actually, or even a group of people to sit down and figure out how to sort through it. So using, and in our case now, we're starting to use natural language processing to look at just simple review of the data that we put into the EMR and the eSource, our tool to collect data for clinical trials, to make sure that we're not missing anything, make sure that what we're putting in is logical. So just really simple, top of the line natural language processing. So I think that's that's one area that we're finding is going to be very useful in our clinics to make sure that our staff are on top of the data that we put in, and then being able to look at that data on the backside.
I think you make a very strong point, Scott. So, and I've noticed the same, in my line of work, working with pharma companies and CROs. There's never a shortage of data, but actually clarity and action and that human angle is actually what sort of slows everyone down. And I think, you put it perfectly. That's exactly where AI has to step in. Not just crunching numbers, but actually being able to point to a certain direction as the next best move. Now, before we kind of dive into the cool tools, let me ask you straight: what's been your and Cedar Health's relationship with AI so far? So, are you the early adopters, or you're like the wait and watch types, or do you secretly think that AI is the antichrist?
Well, so this is an interesting story. Cedar Health Research actually started as Aspen Insights about 6 years ago. So the three founders of Aspen Insights won a hackathon at Lockheed Martin, and their project was taking data from EMR and using that data to match patients for clinical trials. I don't know how they came up with the concept, Ayush, but I wouldn't be sitting here today if they didn't. And the title of the company, Aspen Insights AI, was on purpose. What happened was, as they were starting to build the tool, they realized they had nothing to test it on. So they were trying to find site networks to work with, and they thought, well, why don't we just build our own? So they built Cedar Health Research from scratch, and the model for Cedar Health Research was actually predicated on being able to use that tool to be able to find patients from EMRs. So we have right now 42 practice partners in the greater Dallas Fort Worth area that we work with, and then we have access to their EMRs through a BAA, a Business Associates Agreement, and that's how we find a large portion of our patients for clinical trials. We use that tool to sort through the data to find patients for trials. So it's a matching tool. It's not perfect. The data in the EMR is not perfect, so the matching isn't always perfect. But that's something that we continue to enhance. We've got another version that we just rolled out of the tool. We're looking at other ways to augment what we're doing there to kind of narrow the funnel. And there are some other AI tools out there right now that we're investigating. So I would say that I would necessarily say that we're early adopters, um, but we're not certainly not taking a wait and see attitude right now. We're looking at everything that we can leverage to make our processes better to find the right patients for trials.
I mean, if your founders were doing this 6 years back, by all best industry benchmarks, I would categorize you as the early adopters for sure.
Yeah.
And that's awesome to know. I mean, because trust me, in this industry, and I swear I've met all three camps. I've met believers like yourselves. I've met skeptics. Again, a great bunch. And I've actually even met people who actually think that AI is coming for their souls. So I've met all three camps. Speaking of believers, you've already put AI to work with your tool called Forge, which I believe is optimizing patient identification. So, can you walk us through it? How does it actually change recruitment in real life? And as a side question, does that tool Forge actually make your staff love you or curse you more under their belt?
Yeah. So I think in the early days, it was what we just said. It was a patient matching tool. And I think um, as things have evolved and progressed over the last 5 years, what we've realized as a company is that we can actually find the right patients for trials, but we can also go one level deeper, and that is finding underrepresented patients for trials, which is a big deal in this industry. Right? Finding Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans that qualify for the trial, and being able to offer that clinical research as a care as an option to those people. That's really what our mission and vision has actually turned into over the last year or so. Because that's what our pharma clients and CRO clients want us to do. Um, and we feel like this is something that we can continue to scale as we grow as well, and be able to continue to provide those types of patients, those underrepresented patients for all trials, no matter what indication we're looking at. I'll give you an example. We finished a obesity trial. As everybody probably knows on this podcast, there's a lot of news around the GLP-1s and the amylin products, things like Wegovy and Zepbound, trying to be fair to both companies by plugging one of their products each. But there's uh, a lot of new compounds on the frontier.
Yeah.
So we were working with one of those larger pharma companies, and in the trial that we ran, or our site, we enrolled 31 subjects, and of those 31, all 31 were from a underserved population. Um,
Wow.
when we didn't even know it at the time, Ayush, we were just recruiting, and when we went back and looked at the data, um, it was all the patients on the study, which is very unusual. Um,
Yeah.
but and of that, I think we had 4 or 5 Native American patients, which in most phase 2, phase 3 studies, you get 2,
Yeah.
maybe, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
We are fortunate to have a relationship with a local FQHC, federally qualified health center, that's dedicated to the Native American population. So we have access to their EMR, and some of those patients were part of that cohort. But that's where we think we can set ourselves apart as a site group, by being able to recruit those underserved populations.
Wow. I mean, that is simply amazing. So you're telling me that AI kind of build a foundation for you where you optimize your recruitment, you were able to achieve your recruitment targets, which you believe would not have been possible if that AI layer was not there.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's not our only source. Listen,
Yeah.
as I was saying before, EMRs aren't perfect. When you sort through the data, You don't find everything that you need. Not you can't match inclusion exclusion, one for one in the EMR, but it does give us, I think, a leg up on other site networks by being able to have that data and being in the way that we're able to sort through it, and we're getting better and better at it as time goes on. But we do have to augment that with other recruitment approaches, which everybody's using, and we're looking at other AI enabled recruitment approaches as well. So we've done a number of pilot tests over the course of the last just a couple of months, and we have a couple more that we're starting in the next few weeks.
Wow. That's an amazing success story, Scott. And that makes a lot of sense. And to be honest with you, when I hear this, and then I have conversations with my clients, and I can already tell the real winners in this AI game in pharma are actually the ones who pick one strong use case and then keep stacking capabilities, like you mentioned that you are now also going to use other AI driven platforms for recruitment. So it's never just one model. It's like the whole ecosystem that you build around it. I think it's a fantastic direction. It's a fantastic direction that you guys have taken. Congratulations for that, for to the entire team.
Thank you. Thank you. And I love the term ecosystem that you just used, because
Yeah.
what we're trying to build is that ecosystem around the communities that we're in. So we talk about how we're a community-based site network. Having those relationships with those practice partners that are nearby allows us to be uh, in those communities, working directly with those practices. And really, at the end of the day, we do want to recruit patients for trials, but it starts with a lot more than that. It's the way that we reach out to them. It's the educational materials that we provide them. We do a number of community events in the different communities that we're in, to just talk about healthcare, and what it means to understand your body, and your health and your well-being. And I think there are a number of tools that we're looking at now that will allow us to reach out to these potential patients and provide them that educational material, to keep them active in their healthcare, and to be more trusting of us in the long run, because that's the key variable there for recruiting patients in the trial, and that's the trust. So there are some like AI. I hate using the term chatbots, but I mean, there's some AI tools
Yes.
um, that are pretty cool right now. There are some of them that are creating avatars, for patients, where we can actually start driving the dialogue around healthcare and education, that will enable them to understand more about themselves. And then, if they're up for it, maybe there's a trial that would be a good fit for them down the road.
Yeah, and then AI avatars are the really are probably one of the most coolest things there, especially with patient education. We ourselves at NRV are actually building an AI avatar for one of our clients, and that's entirely directed towards educating patient on that clinical trial, and it's coming out really great. So that's a fantastic use case. And as I said, congratulations for actually sort of focusing on patient recruitment, and kind of looks like you are doing a fantastic job at building the whole ecosystem. Um, that also brings me to to the ground reality. So now it's obvious that you guys are not kind of chasing shiny AI toys. You're using AI where it matters the most. Apart from sort of patient recruitment, if I have to dig a little bit more, let's say AE monitoring or predictive risk or retention apps, or let's say compliance. So if you had to bet, let's say your next paycheck, which one of these is going to change patient outcomes the fastest in the next 2 years?
There's a couple there. I mean, it's hard for me to choose one, right? Because there's a couple interesting things going on. You touched on AI monitoring, and that's definitely one. Using FHIR, FHIR technology, fire technology, and wearables. Wearables are a big thing right now. So having patients on trials using wearables allows us to understand what's going on way ahead of any events occurring. And I think that in itself, for at least from the pharma perspective, right, pharma and biotech perspective, I think is going to be a huge value add for them, because these SAEs that occurred during a trial just
Right.
put a lot of stress on the system, right, from the site to the pharma company, and it can derail an entire trial, as we've seen. So understanding what's happening sooner can allow us to make decisions and make adjustments. So it could
True.
be a dose adjustment that needs to be made on a patient. So I think using that, as you were saying, that predictive analysis, um, I think that's one key thing. Um, but I think there's the protocol design is another area where I think that we could be doing a lot better job. I mean, I can remember sitting on a panel, it's probably 15 years ago, Ayush,
Oh,
talking about complexity of trial design and how things were becoming more complex. And if you fast forward to today, I don't know that there's a single person out there that would tell you that trials have become less complex. So I think it makes it challenging for everyone, and in particular the patients. It, people don't want to participate in a trial if it's just too onerous for them.
yeah.
We need to make it something that's useful to them, that's compelling. They have to have a reason for wanting to participate in the trial. And then at the site level, we find clunky protocol design to be very challenging to work with, and it's fraught with potential errors too. So I think that's an area where, to me, the jury's still out as to whether AI is having any effect on protocol
Yeah.
design. But it's one of those areas where I think across the clinical research spectrum, it's difficult to get people to make changes. Right? It starts at the FDA, and the FDA may say that they're open to new and novel designs, but at the end of the day, if anybody tweaks something and they don't like it, you may not get approval. So we tend to be very conservative when it comes to protocols, but I think there are some ways to streamline things, and we're starting to see it in some of the newer trials. There is some movement, but it's going to take a while.
Sure. Uh, so I think that's a lot. So there are a lot more areas that are still a kind of a white space for AI to get in and actually build some impact on the ground. Is that what's saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Like within our clinics, what we're starting to do is um, really look at how we can use AI to become more efficient at the way we do things. We've recently just finished an entire assessment of the way that our clinic staff see patients and do the different processes for studies. And we're using some AI to actually evaluate all of that and determine exactly what we need to change in the process. So we're we're very much a process improvement company. We'd like to be able to look at the way that we do things, whether it's capacity planning, and that's another area where we started to use some AI technology as well to make ourselves more efficient, a little bit faster. We don't want to speed things up too much, and get out over our skis and have issues, but I think there are definitely some touch points there that we can use AI.
So meaning you're saying trial design optimization or protocol optimization, is something if AI is able to solve, that will bring the largest impact possible in the next 2 years. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think for us, from a site perspective, those would be
Yes,
two of the
of
bigger
course.
things. Right?
So you mentioned about clinics. I'm just curious to know. So when you talk to doctors, nurses, or even patients, do they see AI as a helpful kind of a co-pilot, or in them is there still kind of a skepticism on ground?
I think it depends on the individual. I think as a group, we are starting to get people to understand um, how AI and these new processes that I was just talking about can make them more productive. Um, and we used to use the term at a former company, having people work at the highest level of their license, right?
Yeah.
Not having them do the things that someone else could do, or something else could do. So I think that's where we're starting to understand that there are certain things that can be done, using AI, that will enable them to be more productive and do the things that they do best, which is seeing the patients, talking to the patients, spending more time, at a visit with a patient, as opposed to, putting data into the e-source and making sure that everything that, is in the e-source is 100% accurate. There are tools to be able to make sure that that is the case.
Yeah, no, love that. I mean, because I think that most people often forgets that the AI impact uh, doesn't actually start in a pharma corporate HQ. It starts in a clinic where with a patient, at the exact point of care happens, and I think that's where the real impact comes in. All right, so let's zoom out a little bit and imagine I give you a magic button, a magic AI button, right? You press it, and one part of the clinical trials become 10 times better overnight. What are you fixing first? I think I kind of know the answer to that question now, but I'll still let you answer that.
Yeah, and I led with it, and I'm gonna go back to it, because I do think that we're sitting on a gold mine of data. For us, just as a site, there's a ton of data, and using that natural language processing to be able to pull out information. So I'll give you an example. When we're running an Alzheimer's trial right now, first time in Alzheimer's, studies going pretty well. We have found, as we have gone through the EMR, that there are a number of records that are PDF'd and scans and images, just things that we can't access easily through our current technology, our current Forge system. And using natural language processing, we can extract that information and be able to sort through it and determine. Um, for example, with these patients that have Alzheimer's or mild cognitive impairment, there may have been some assessments that are done. There are a number of different tests that are done on these patients to determine whether they have Alzheimer's or not. Those are generally just scanned into a chart.
Yeah,
So it's not easy for us to pull that information out. So I think I just think there's a lot of upside to using NLP to determine what types of patients would be a good fit for a trial. And that's our selfish way of looking at it. But I
yeah,
think as you just back up and look at all of the data that's out there, um, it's very disparate right now, and we've got to figure out a way to pull it together, to be able to make it more useful.
right. Uh, let me flip this question. What's the nightmare scenario? So what's that one thing that makes you think, yeah, maybe AI shouldn't be running this as of yet?
I haven't seen it. I mean, I haven't felt it yet. I think people talk about. I think there is one area that we have to be careful about, and that's the patient data and who owns that patient data. So I think there's always a concern in our industry around, HIPAA, and making sure that data is used in the right way. Following 21 CFR Part 11, for all the different technologies that we use. Um, but we talk about, and I know you do too, de-identified versus identified data, and using only de-identified data. But at what point does that de-identified data become identifiable? Um,
Correct.
and it's a tricky, it's a slippery slope, I guess, that we need to be concerned about. So I think that's the one thing that I get worried about is we have all this data, we have this patient data, and we do our best to protect it. But there are bad agents out there
Of
that
course.
are going to use this data for things that aren't for the right reason.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's the biggest paradox, right? So AI can collapse timelines like never before,
Yeah,
but without these proper guardrails, as you mentioned, the risks multiply just as fast.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in my view, just balancing this innovation with governance is the single biggest challenge as you rightly said, we have
Yeah.
ahead of.
Yeah, and that's as we continue to grow too, and start working with additional practice partners. We're looking at other larger institutions and medical practices. That's going to be front of mind for all of them, right? As we say, hey, we want to be able to use your data to find and provide clinical resources of care as an option to your patient population.
Right.
They're going to push back and say, yeah, but do you have the right things in place to make sure that you're protecting that patient data and it's not going to get out there and be used for the wrong reasons?
So, Scott, if we meet again 5 years from now, what do you think surprises the most about how AI would have shaped clinical research?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that question. And 5 years is such a, if you would have asked me that question a year ago, to 5 years, I think I might have been able to answer it. But it is amazing how fast things are moving. And to say what's it gonna look like 5 years from now, I think it's hard because I don't even know what it's gonna look like a year from now, to be honest with you. When you talk to some of these, when you hear some of these experts talking about how fast things are moving, I just think there's a lot of possibility. I do think though that um, if used in the right way, we can become, as clinical research industry, a lot more precise in the way that we do things, and a lot and faster. I'm not going to say a lot faster, but I think we can speed things up. And I'll give you another example. I know IBM Consulting. I was reading an article. They are working with a pharma company to speed up the approval process using agentic AI. So there are a whole series of things that, as you know, because you're much more in touch with this than I am. Switching from ANI to AGI, all of these new novel things that are taking place in AI. But IBM Consulting was talking about how they were able to work with this one company and speed up the approval process by just looking at all of the other approvals they had done and refining the process. And I think that if we continue to multiply it, is going to help this industry move faster. And what that means at the end of the day for people in the US and outside the US is we can get drugs to market faster.
Yeah.
So, as we were discussing before about, what would you say to somebody, at the dinner table about why it takes so long? This is where I think we can speed things up. It may not take off 10 years from the process, but if we could take it just a couple of years off the process, you could
Yeah.
save a lot. And we have a lot of really interesting things going on in Alzheimer's research, and you know things that would really move the needle as the population gets older and we have more cases of things like Alzheimer's. So I think that's interesting. I think the other thing that is going to be I think very interesting is this reasoning AI, um, and being able to apply that to
Yeah.
some of the things that we do in the industry. And I'm not even going to be able to touch that right now because I don't know enough about it to talk about it. But it seems like there are a number of areas where that could really help us from a development standpoint.
Yeah, and I I agree. Asking someone what's AI going to do in next 5 years is probably the most difficult question today in the world. Everyone's trying to answer it in their own ways, and you're right. I mean, the speed that AI is changing. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm founder of an AI startup in healthcare, as you know. And AI is practically giving myself insomnia at the moment because I sleep one day and next morning I get up and there is completely new tech stack that is available now. You can do much more than what you were able to do just a day back. So
Yeah,
it's 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 bizarre and it's profound of at the same time in terms of what's happening. And yeah, I definitely second that thought.
yeah. I mean, I was listening to another podcast recently, and they were talking about the sportsification of AI recruitment. What I mean by that is recruitment of professionals in the AI space. and the money that they're giving people to move from one company to another
Yeah.
it's like sports stars, right? So you've got people that are getting offered $250 million to move from one company
Wow.
to another. I mean, it's not like $2 million, Ayush. It's $250 million,
Dollars,
and
yes.
somewhere in Silicon Valley they have a daily streaming. It's called like TVPN or something. It's like ESPN, and they're following people as they move from one job to the other and things that are going on in the AI industry.
Yeah, I mean, Magic Johnson would be turning in his grave today. Yeah.
Yeah.
I recently saw a story, someone, I think about 16 years old, he joined Tesla when he was 14. Now
Yeah.
he's 16, being offered a pay package of $150 million as an AI engineer at 16 years old. Uh, Even the top athletes actually can't imagine something like that. So that is very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
We,
I
we,
thought we had
we're living
child
in a
labor
fun world,
laws. I didn't know that was even possible.
yeah, we're living in a fun world.
Yeah.
All right, so our next segment is a fun segment that I I want to do. I have three rapid fire questions for you, Scott.
Okay.
And you just need to answer them as quick as possible. You know the drill, right?
All right.
So, and here's the first one. Tomorrow AI joins in as your intern. What is the first thing that you're going to dump on it?
First thing I'd have them jump on. Um, I think for us, we have, as I was saying earlier, so many process improvement things in place that I'd want the AI
Okay.
intern to be able to jump in and assess which ones are the most relevant to what we're trying to do, and prioritize for us.
Oh, that's a fantastic answer. What's one thing humans will always do better than AI in pharma? And you can't say drink scotch.
Um, I think it's just the communication with patients. It's really that dialogue that we have, whether it's our clinical trial educators,
Yeah,
our recruiters talking to patients, or in the clinic. Yeah.
love that. Perfect answer. Yes. Just give me one word on what you think the future of AI in clinical research is, or future of clinical research thanks to AI.
Efficiency.
Okay. All right. That's a fair answer. All right. So, Scott, uh, time for the mic drop. Uh, Now, imagine if every single pharma CEO in the US was listening to you right now. What is that one insight about AI in clinical research that you'd want burned into their brains?
I think the one thing that, and I mentioned this earlier, is how we make things easier for the patient to participate in a trial. So I don't care what it is that we're changing, whether it's the protocol, the different assessments that are done, but to make things easier for patients to participate in the trial.
Wow, brilliant! And that's exactly why the show exists. Because the leaders who sort of embrace this shift earlier, as we spoke, will define kind of the next years, 5 years, or the decade of pharma. And I strongly believe the rest would be playing catch up.
Yeah.
So thank you, Scott, for being the perfect first guest for us. And to everyone watching, if you enjoyed this, hit subscribe or share it with someone in the pharma who still thinks AI is just for chatbots. This was the best AI show on pharma. I am Ayush Mishra with Dr. Scott Treiber, and I'll see you in the next episode.